I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar, and then on my cue, we can begin. Faith, can you confirm that we are live on Facebook?
We are, Jordan.
Perfect.
Thanks, Katrina. Anytime.
All right, let's go ahead and get the show on the roll. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Patterson, and I'm the engagement specialist at IndyGo. I want to thank you all for joining this informational session today with IndyGo and the Indianapolis Department of Public Works to discuss downtown superstops in a two-way conversion project. IndyGo and DPW are partnering to implement significant improvements to Delaware Street and Fort Wayne Avenue. And today's agenda is simple. There will be a presentation followed by a Q&A session. Attendees on the Zoom webinar and Facebook Live are welcome to submit questions or comments at any time during or after the presentation. And both comment sections are being monitored. And after the presentation, we'll have some time to address questions and comments pertaining to this specific project. Also, a friendly reminder to abide by our public meeting decorum, being respectful to our presenters and each other. The presentation is being recorded and will be available on our website, indigo.net/superstops. I will go ahead and queue up the presentation and we will go ahead and get started. If you all will forgive me, I know how to share a screen. I've done this many times. Okay. All right. And without further ado, I will go ahead and pass it on to Austin.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Austin Gibble. I am a project development planner for IndyGo, and I am the acting project manager for the superstops and transit portions of the Delaware Street reconstruction project. So we'll just go ahead and do a quick overview of the basics. What it is, oops, there we go, it got away. This will be between Maryland and Vermont streets, a full depth reconstruction of Delaware Street. So what this means is that basically we're going down to the dirt. We're starting over with Delaware Street. And then north of Vermont Street, there will be a 3.5-inch resurfacing. So grinding down that level of asphalt that's on top, putting a new layer of resurfacing above, and then we'll all be doing the same thing to Fort Wayne Avenue, as well as converting it from a one-way street to a two-way street. And why are we doing this? So the condition of Delaware Street is pretty poor. It has deteriorated to the point where we can no longer just do a mill it off and resurface it with new asphalt, at least between Maryland and Vermont. Additionally, there are still streetcar tracks. You can kind of see in that picture there, if you drive on Delaware in front of the city county building, you may see them poking out of the asphalt. Indy's streetcar system was never really dismantled. It was really just kind of paved over. And these streetcar tracks result in cracks that allow water to get in and freeze and create potholes. So we're going to take those out. Additionally, as the Marion County Transit Plan is continuously implemented on a rolling basis, the number of buses that are traveling up Delaware Street from the Julia M. Carson Transit Center are gradually going to increase. And so we will be adding the addition of a bus only and bus and turn or BAT lane on the right-hand travel lane of Delaware Street. It essentially acts as a de facto bus lane already. There's already a lot of buses traveling up that way on Delaware Street every 10 to 15 minutes. And so what this will do is this will organize the street better. and allow buses to continue traveling forward reliably, and also allow motorists to understand that, hey, there's going to be a bus in this lane. So you don't need to like weave in and out of it to get around buses. So Ben, I think I will pass it on to you, or Will.
All right. Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. My name is William Ward. I am the lead designer for the portion of the project along Delaware Street from Maryland up to Vermont. So I just wanted to give a brief rundown, a little more detail about what we're actually doing on this project. Okay, so Delaware Street from Maryland up to Vermont, it will be a complete pavement reconstruction. We're going to have dedicated bus lanes in this section. They will be painted red. Sidewalks and curb ramps, we're going to improve those on an as-needed basis. So we are maintaining sidewalk when it's in good condition. Any curb ramps that aren't ADA compliant will be brought up to current standards, and any sidewalk that's in the process of deteriorating out there, that will be replaced as well. The current signal at the transit center is going to be removed, and as Austin was saying, the old trolley tracks underneath the pavement along Delaware will be removed also. And the roadway cross slopes, another intent of this project was to help improve some of the drainage that's ponding, some of the water that's ponding on the roadway. So the roadway cross slopes were altered a little bit throughout this area to help eliminate the pockets of standing water that you see on the pavement. Okay, as far as construction goes, the plan is to construct the roadway one half at a time, with the eastern side of Delaware Street being constructed first. After the eastern side is constructed, then the eastern lanes will be opened up to traffic, and the western side of the roadway will then be constructed. During construction, there will be no parking permitted on Delaware Street. We just need to utilize the existing parking lane as a travel lane in order to try and keep traffic moving as best as possible during construction. Driveways to the transit center on Delaware Street there may be closed for one weekend only in order to reconstruct those driveways. We're only allowed to close that for one weekend because it's a very busy bus schedule, and we need to try and minimize the impacts to those buses in the transit center. Okay, here is the typical cross section of the roadway. In the completed condition, you see that we'll have 4 travel lanes along Delaware. And then you can see the addition of the bus lanes as well in front of the transit center along Delaware. And bus lanes will run the length of Delaware Street from Maryland all the way up to Fort Wayne Avenue. Okay, here's a little diagram showing what the current construction plan is. As you can see there, the eastern side of the roadway will be constructed first. And what we'll do is we'll shift traffic over into the western lanes, as well as that western parking lane. We'll utilize that as a travel lane during construction. Various intersections throughout the project area will be impacted. And the pedestrians, the plan is also to repair the sidewalk on the eastern side of the roadway as needed during this time. So pedestrians will be detoured along the western edge of the roadway along the sidewalk over there on the west side. Virginia Avenue will be closed during the western portion of the construction when the western lanes are under construction there. As you can see, the traffic will shift to the east side of the roadway for this project, or for this portion of the project here. Again, we will need to use the eastern parking lane as a travel lane. And now pedestrians will be able to use the sidewalk along the east side of the roadway, the reconstructed sidewalk with the accessible ramps. Okay, the scope of the project from Vermont Street up to Fort Wayne Avenue is a There's a resurface here, so Delaware Street will be resurfaced, and there's also going to be a super stop constructed up near North Street. And through this area as well, there will be dedicated bus lanes that will be painted red. Okay, so for the maintenance of traffic for the super stop, it's a similar concept. We'll be closing traffic on the eastern side of the roadway and utilizing the travel lanes on the west in order to be able to fit construction equipment in there in order to be able to build the super stop as we need to. Same concept here up at North Street. Construction of the super stop will result in the closure of the eastern lanes in order to be able to get in there and do the work that the contractor needs to, and traffic will be maintained along the western lanes. Okay, Fort Wayne Avenue from Delaware to Alabama. So Fort Wayne Avenue will be resurfaced throughout this area, and the roadway will be converted from a one-way roadway to a two-way roadway. So it'll be able to support two-way traffic after construction. Okay, during the construction on Fort Wayne Avenue, there will be a detour. It will consist of Alabama Street, a route along Alabama over to North, and then up Delaware. So traffic on St. Clair Street, oh, could you go back one slide?
Apologies.
Street, will be permitted through the construction zone along with warning signage and nighttime flaggers.
All right, Austin.
Apologies, I was muted. Okay. So here's the super stops portion of it. Here's the transit improvements portion. So the super stops are an emulation of something called Loop Link in Chicago. Same basic concept where it's improved transit facilities and bus lanes to improve the performance of local buses on certain streets in the city center. So it includes that bus and turn lane, but it also includes these physical structures that will have real-time signage, security cameras, larger shelters that are 20 feet long by 5 feet deep. These will have solar lighting in them. And then the platform itself is about 9 inches high. So it's not perfectly level boarding like you'll see on our bus rapid transit services, but the step height between the floor of the bus and the platform itself will be a lot less. So it's easier for wheelchair users and it's easier for people to get on and off. And it kind of helps speed that boarding and alighting process. Additionally, there will be a ticket vending machine. These stops are very busy, or their adjacent stops are very busy today. So, and these will also consolidate some existing stops. So for example, the bus stop at Market in Delaware will close, and then this will become the new stop or the transit center. They're about a block apart. So this means that we need people to have a board and get off the bus as quickly as possible so they can buy their ticket at the ticket vending machine and then tap it once they get on the bus instead of fumbling with cash at the fare box on board. And then additionally, there will be ADA compliant ramps, some railing to kind of designate where the waiting area is, and benches. And this is a bird's eye view, if you will, of the New York and Delaware Street stop right there at the corner of Mass Ave. You can see the curb ramp, some stairs. There was a ramp at the far north end to accommodate delivery vehicles, the bus only lane, sidewalk improvements, pylons, and ticket vending machines. And this is the same thing for the Delaware and North Street. And you can see that we will not be impacting the cultural trail crossing there. And this is a different rendition of what you saw earlier with the cross sections, just kind of cartoonized and colored a little bit. You can see the current conditions where it's 4 travel lanes, 2 parking lanes, and sidewalks. And then you can see where at the lower segment, where it'll be 3 travel lanes, a bus/bus and turn lane, and then the super stop itself. And this is at an area where there's a super stop in the parking lane. Outside of where there's a super stop, the parking won't change. So at New York and Delaware, that was a blue Indy station that's being removed, so it's not public parking right now anyway. And then the Delaware and North Station has a handful of metered spaces that will be relocated. And these are some of the additional bird's eye views of what the configuration will look like. So you can see here at between Maryland and Washington on Delaware Street, there's actually 2 bus lanes. What that will allow us to do is have the BRT vehicles come out and make that swinging left-hand turn from the right-hand lane that they need to do. So that's for the red line, and it will be for the future purple and blue lines as well. And then in the other lane, there will be local buses that after the BRT vehicles make their turn, will be able to just continue forward into the bus only lane, continuing up Delaware Street. And you can see there in the lower frame, there at Market, where it starts to become dashed about 50 feet before the intersection, where motorists can enter the bus lane to make a right-hand turn. Otherwise, the lane is designated solid red, meaning that only buses can use that lane. Continuing up to Walnut Street, you see the same patterns to driveways there that are along Delaware Street as well as New York Street, and then continuing on up to Michigan and Walnut. And then finally, you see the approach up to Fort Wayne Avenue. And Fort Wayne Avenue will there at this location be converted to a 2-way street. One of the benefits of converting Fort Wayne Avenue to a 2-way means that it eliminates a few pinch points for our bus routes. So a couple of our busiest bus routes, the number 10 and the 19, which are currently make 2 hard turns, one onto North Street and then again on Alabama to then reach Fort Wayne Avenue and go over to Central and 10th Streets. This causes a problem if any drivers pull past the stop bar at these intersections. The buses have to make this wide swing in order to make those right-hand turns. And if a car is pulled up too far, the bus can't make that turn. So the car then has to back up or pull to the right and go around. And it's very challenging and results in delays. With this new configuration, the buses will be able to just go up to Fort Wayne Avenue, make a soft 45-degree right-hand turn, and continue straight up to Central and 10th Street. And our construction timeline currently has all of this work starting in the first quarter of 2021, keeping that window because we're not really sure what winter is going to bring this year. Always got to have that contingency in place. And we anticipate substantial completion by the end of October. Everything will be taken care of and fully closed out by the end of 2021.
Awesome. Thank you, Will and Austin, for that presentation. We are about to go into the question and answer portion of today's informational meeting. But before we do, here's some context if you have further questions outside of today's meeting. Ben Easley of DPW, his email address is ben.easley@indy.gov. We have Janelle Button from the city of Indianapolis also, janelle.button@indigo.gov, and then Faith Chadwick from IndyGo. That is fchadwick@indigo.net. And at this time, I'll stop sharing my screen and we will get into questions and answers. All right. Let's head over to the chat. First question from Facebook, and that is, what plans are there to improve safety for folks crossing at Fort Wayne from the Central Christian Church parking lot to the church itself? The question then goes on to say, with 2-way traffic, I can foresee more safety issues at an area than already exist.
Yeah, so there will be new crosswalks repainted as well as updated curb ramps at that location.
All right, thank you. Um, there's a question from the chat. Which bus routes will the 2 upgraded Delaware Street stops serve?
Okay, let me see if I can remember all of the numbers. Big challenge here. So that would be,
Austin, I'll jump in. I believe it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and 38.
there'd be more than that.
At minimum, those.
Because there'd be also the 19, the 6, the
Okay,
I might have to get back to this one.
It's a very busy area for buses, so we'll compile a full list and add that to our website.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Question from the chat. Will pedestrians need to walk through superstop areas and navigate through people waiting for buses, or will the sidewalk be separated from the stop area?
The sidewalk will be separated from the super stop area. So there will be a railing in the super stop area, and then the sidewalk for pedestrians just going through will be right behind it. The super stop itself actually slopes ever so slightly towards the street for drainage purposes. So the curb will be about 9 inches high at the street, and then about a foot tall at the against the sidewalk. And so there will be like that foot tall ledge, and then there will be the railing, and then the sidewalk behind it.
There's a question. Can you send out this presentation afterward? You'll be able to find this presentation online at indigo.net/superstops. Next question. Will the striping be reflective so that it can be seen at night and in the rain? And then the question goes on to say, change traffic patterns are difficult to navigate in dark rain with the striping that DPW typically uses.
I'll let Will take that question.
So it should be reflective based on current standards. So hopefully with the new striping out there, it should be more reflective and easier to see in the rain. I've driven through those roads a lot, and yeah, it can be difficult sometimes. So hopefully with the new pavement and the new striping, it'll be much easier to see.
Thanks, Will. The next question is the island and the intersection of Fort Wayne, St. Clair, and Alabama going to be altered in any way as a part of this project?
No.
Cool. And then let's see.
And
what is it?
Sorry, I'm backing up. I think there may be a curb ramp there that's being updated to be brought into ADA compliance, but otherwise, no.
Thanks, Austin. I'll also add back to the last question of sharing this presentation. DPW can share this presentation under the project on the major transportation and infrastructure page of their website. The next question is, what is the estimated cost of the entire project, and are federal dollars being used?
Total project cost, including, down to the dirt reconstruction, super stops, bus lanes, resurfacing, two-way conversion, is about $3.5 million. There were federal funds used to design super stops, but the construction is all done with local dollars.
All right, and then what is the timeline for additional super stops downtown?
That's a question we're still working on answering. It is very dependent on funding availability. As I'm sure everyone is well aware, COVID-19 has dealt quite a blow to local budgets that we will see having a continuous impact for several years, at least 3 to 4 years. And it's highly dependent on the recovery of local economies, as well as funds that are available with the incoming administration.
All right. Regarding lack of curb bump outs, how much consideration was given to pedestrian connectivity across Delaware by DPW and ACOM? With the full rebuild of Delaware, wouldn't issues with drainage solvable with swales? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I can try to talk to this one unless you want to jump in, Bill. I know that this was a consideration. I don't know how. I'm not an engineer, so I can't speak specifically to that, but I can certainly look up that information and get back with you after talking with our engineering team. Unless, Bill, if you were intimately involved, I just didn't want you to have to take that question if you were not involved in that part of the planning process. But Jeffrey, we can get that information for you.
Awesome. Any possibility of the two-way conversion of Delaware Street being continued north from Maryland through the project limits? Any possibility of the two-way conversion of Delaware Street being continued north from Maryland to the project limits?
I'll let DPW answer that question.
The two-way conversion of Delaware, that's not correct, right? We're converting Fort Wayne, not Delaware.
Right, we're converting Fort Wayne.
So if I'm reading the question correctly, it supposes that we are converting Delaware Street, and that is not correct.
Yeah.
I think the question is in relation to how Delaware Street is two-way south of Maryland, there behind Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and if that two-way designation would continue north at any point in the future.
Oh, if that is the case, I have not heard any conversation about that as it regards to this project or otherwise. So we certainly could look into it if that's an interest, but I don't believe that's a part of this project, certainly.
Okay. Then will Fort Wayne be two-way from Delaware to north in Pennsylvania Street?
Yeah, so that is actually in design, and it'll probably be under construction in the spring. It's being bid as a separate project, but yes, so Fort Wayne will also be converted to a two-way street down to Pennsylvania.
This next question is from Facebook. Are there any plans to repurpose or recycle the old trolley rails?
Not at the moment, although I can't necessarily speak for DPW here, but I know on the Red Line, anyone who really wanted them, like I think some we gave them to some people for art projects. DPW, do you have a response to that?
I'm sorry, which question are we on?
Yeah, the question is, are there any plans to repurpose or recycle the old trolley rails?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know, again, if you've heard those considerations specifically, AECOM folks, but I can check with our chief engineer. Our chief engineer, Erica, wanted to be on this call this morning, but had to pull away for a health thing kind of at the last minute. So we're standing in for her, but these are excellent questions, and I'll certainly round the bases with her. Hopefully we can even have these answers available for this afternoon's conversation. Ben, you jumped on real quick. Do you know the answer to that question?
The rails become the property of the contractor after they remove them. I will say that typically the contractors do recycle those rails because the steel in them is very valuable. So, but there's no plans to reuse them in any way.
Just a reminder, Ben alluded to our evening session that is at 5:30 this evening through Zoom. The next question is, I work for Indiana Landmarks and we hold a preservation easement on the historic White Castle property at Delaware and Fort Wayne. How does this affect the property, if at all?
It doesn't. Let's see, Delaware and Fort Wayne. Let me just make sure, let me pull it up here. We're not constructing any other vertical structures in that location. Delaware and Fort Wayne, Delaware and Fort Wayne. There it is. Yeah, that area will just be resurfacing and redoing some curb ramps to bring them to Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. Other than the resurfacing and conversion to a two-way street, there will be no other work done. And that work will all be done within right of public right of way. So we won't be on any private property.
Awesome. This is a question for IndyGo. What lessons learned from the red line stops will be used in the design of super stops?
Yeah, good question. So the applicability is a little different here. We drew lessons learned from the Loop Link project in Chicago. Although that's not to say that we aren't applying some things to the super stops that we are from Redline, but the situation's a little different. We are certainly applying lessons learned on the red line to the purple line and blue line BRTs.
Thanks, Austin. Will the mid-block crossings at Court and Wabash remain? Will there be any safety measures taken to make these already dangerous crossings safer? Mid-block crossings at Court and Wabash, will they remain?
So those crossings are remaining in place. Those curb ramps are being brought up to current ADA standards. I can't remember off the top of my head if we're adding some additional signage there. I'll have to look at that, but I know those crosswalks are remaining and the ramps are being brought up to ADA standards.
Thanks, Will. Was there any consideration of adding bike infrastructure as part of this project? I commute on Delaware Street daily because of the hassle of zigzagging back and forth trying to follow the cultural trail. So any consideration to bike infrastructure?
I know on IndyGo's end, we took a look at that. Oh gosh, that was a while ago. And I think there were constraints between performance measures and what we could do geometrically. Ben, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Talking about this, Ben, absolutely, I would have to defer to our design team again, unless AECOM wants to jump in. Again, not even pretending to play an engineer on TV, I wonder about the thought of adding bike infrastructure along a busy thoroughfare, obviously, especially with the cultural trail nearby. But Chris, I absolutely can figure out what the conversation was around this and get this information to you.
Thanks, Ben. Will the cultural trail be closed detoured at any of the 3 crossings with Delaware Street during construction? The question is, will the cultural trail be closed or detoured at any of the 3 crossings with Delaware Street during construction?
That's a good question for DPW.
Yeah, I think I've seen the drawings, and I believe that most every street that interacts with the closure has a pedestrian detour plan. I don't have them currently in front of me. Maybe the AECOM folks do.
It should be a fairly clean detour. Again, constructing half a Delaware Street at a time, east and then west, it allows us to use the sidewalk along Delaware on the opposite side of the roadway where construction is not taking place. So it should be a fairly simple, fairly brief detour route, I would hope. And as far as cultural trails go, contractors should have some options as far as maintaining traffic through there. So they have some flexibility to adjust those detour routes dependent on how their construction is coming along, things like that. So hopefully it'll run fairly smoothly, and yeah, detours should be accounted for.
Then will parking on Fort Wayne from Delaware to St. Clair be eliminated as part of this project?
Yeah, so between St. Clair and Delaware, the on-street parking will go away. Otherwise, the parking is remaining.
Thanks, Austin. That is all the questions at this time. We'll give just a few more seconds for people to submit any additional questions. We have our social media monitor monitoring comments on Facebook. So if there are any more comments or questions on Facebook, feel free to submit those. Nothing yet from social media.
Jordan, do you want to flash our contact information up there one more time, or just put it in the chat for everyone? If there are any follow-up questions for DPW, feel free to send them to myself or to Janelle. Both of us are on the line here and happy to take your emails and figure out with our engineering division. It seems to be a lot of questions about what the conversation was going into this design. We're happy to figure those out for you.
And we do have one question. Is the project subject to Davis-Bacon wage rates? Can't say that. I know what that is. Okay. I will share.
Those are federal wage rates. And since there's no federal funds in the construction, they should not apply.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share the contacts. You guys see how I easily shared it that time? I'm getting it together. Okay. For additional questions, you can submit those to Ben Easley at ben.easley at IndyGo or indy.gov, excuse me, Janelle.Button at indy.gov, and then Faith Chadwick, fchadwick at indigo.net. All right. So the presentation, you can always replay it on IndyGo's Facebook page. We'll be recording this evening's presentation, and we hope to see you at 5:30 if you're interested in joining that session. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone.